Do you ever face a problem from God that looks massive and your imagination just turns it into a monster? Notice this. Numbers chapter 13 is about how we scout God's promises and how fear or faith colors the report. Today you'll hear how the same land produced two stories, one of overwhelming fear, the other of courageous claim. And at the end, I will give you one immediate action to help your faith speak louder than your fear. In this episode of Biblical Unlocks, this show is designed to help build your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. And if you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Now, let's get a little bit of context into the chapter. So Numbers chapter 13 actually belongs to the Sinai to Canaan movement. That is, the Israelites are moving from Sinai to Canaan, the promised land, and God is telling Moses to send some spies to basically uncover the land that God had promised. This is going to be occurring in Numbers chapter 13 verses 1 and 2. So 12 leaders are going to go, and this is a little bit of a hint to the 12 apostles that we see later, and the 12 tribes of Israel, and so on and so forth. So they go, they explore Canaan, right? And Canaan is full of grapes, figs, pomegranates, all of this stuff. And they return with evidence, and so much evidence that it takes two men to carry it. That's what we're going to read in Numbers chapter 13, verses 23 to 24. But then the spies split, right? Caleb and later Joshua. They see God's promise and urge immediate possession. 10 paint giant obstacles and spread fear. That's going to happen in Numbers chapter 13, verses 31 to 33. And the chapter sets up the dramatic decision. Will Israel trust the promise or the problem? Okay, let's read the first 9 verses, which is going to be the command, the list of the 12 spies, and my question to you is, who do you send to look? Wise scouts or anxious friends? Verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites, from each of their ancestral tribes. You shall send a man, every one a leader among them. So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord, all of them leading men among the Israelites. These were their names: from the tribe of Reuben, Shammua son of Zakur; from the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat son of Hori; from the tribe of Judah, Caleb son of Jephunneh. Verse 7, from the tribe of Issachar, Igal son of Joseph; from the tribe of Ephraim, Hosea son of Nun; from the tribe of Benjamin, Palti son of Raphu; from the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel son of Sodai; from the tribe of Joseph, that is the tribe of Manasseh, Gadai son of Susi; from the tribe of Dan, Amiel son of Gemali; from the tribe of Asher, Sethur son of Michael; from the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi son of Vophsi; from the tribe of Gad, Guel son of Machi. These were the names of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, and Moses changed the name of Hoshea son of Nun to Joshua. Alright, biblical unlock number 1. Now, I was going to read just verses 1 to 9, but I just got a little carried away. So, essentially, there are 2 biblical unlocks here. The first one is that God calls for eyewitness testimony. So, worship is rooted in witnessed promise. God instructs Moses to send men, leaders from each tribe, not just random travelers. The point here is that faithful action begins with ordered, accountable reconnaissance. A community expands God's gift together through their leadership. Sending witnesses prevents some private fantasy from becoming public policy. And what's interesting is what we see later. The names authorize the report. A people's story is formed by those who are allowed to speak. Each spy is named and they're sent as a tribal representative. I said before that there are going to be 12 spies. There's one corresponding to each of the tribes of Israel. And the names actually confer accountability. These men's words will shape the nation. And the theology here is that leadership voice is decisive. When leaders speak, it's spread. And when leaders declare God, it steadies. And this is really important because these names are going to describe and going to be important for what's going to happen next. Verse 17, Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, Go up there into the Negeb, and go up into the hill country, and see what the land is like, and whether the people who live in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and whether the land they live in is good or bad, and whether the towns that they live in are unwalled or fortified, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are trees in it or not. Be bold, and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now it was the season of the first ripe grapes, so they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin to Rehob, near the Lebo Hamath. They went into the Negeb, and came to the Hebron, and Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the Anakites, were there. Hebron was built 70 years before Zoan in Egypt. And they came to the Wadi Eshcol, and cut down from there a branch with a single cluster of grapes, and they carried it on a pole between two of them. They also brought some pomegranates and figs. That place was called Wadi Eshcol, because of the cluster that the Israelites cut down from there. At the end of 40 days, they returned from spying out the land. Okay, biblical unlock number 2. God's promise bears fruit. That is to say, there is a physical abundance, and that is a theological sign. It's not a mere economic bonus, because the spies themselves, they cut a single cluster of grapes, so 2 large men. That's what we read in verses 23 to 24. And they came to the Wadi Eshcol and cut down from there a branch with a single cluster of grapes, and they carried it on a pole between 2 of them. They brought some pomegranates and figs. What's the important thing here? That the cluster is a theological object lesson. That is, the land is not empty, it overflows. God's promise is incarnate in fruit, and the presence of harvest is actually meant to alarm unbelief, not to fuel nostalgia for Egypt. Okay, let's read the final part of the chapter, which is verses 26 to 33, and this is the most important section, because it's going to question whether we are anxious or whether we trust in God, whether we are bold and courageous or whether we are fearful. Because there's going to be a divided report. Are we going to see Caleb's faith or the fear of the report? Which voice is going to shape your people, the word of faith or the word of fear? Let's read verses 26 to 33 now. And they came to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the Israelites in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they reported to him and said, We came to the land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruits. Yet the people who live in the land are strong, and the towns are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the land of the Negeb. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country. And the Canaanites live by the sea and along the Jordan. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him said, We are not able to go up against this people, for they are stronger than we. So they brought to the Israelites an unfavorable report of the land that they had spied out, saying, The land that we have gone through as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are of great size. There we saw the Nephilim, the Anakites come from Nephilim, and to ourselves we seemed like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. Biblical unlock number 3, and this is the most important one. The same facts can tell 2 stories. Fear imagines giants, but faith sees God's enabling. Listen to what Caleb says here. Let us go up and possess it. That's what he says in Numbers chapter 13, verse 30. While the 10 say, we seemed like grasshoppers and spread panic. What is the deeper point here? Perception is interpretive. The spies had identical data, grapes and cities, but their interpretive lenses produced opposite directives. One to enter, the other to retreat. And theology teaches that faith interprets reality through God's promise, whilst faith interprets reality through threats. So my question to you is, who are you going to be like, and what will you be driven by? Will you be driven by faith and God's impending glory and victory, or will you be driven by fear? The choice is ultimately up to you. Faith or fear. Different F's, different destinies. Let's see how this chapter fulfills Jesus Christ. So Numbers chapter 13 itself exposes the clash between God's promise and human fear. Christ is the one who actually perfects this faith, the true Joshua or Caleb who leads us into the promised rest. Where the spies waffled, Jesus calls disciples to trust his presence and to step into the inheritance he secures. Our Canaan, the life of promise, is entered by faith in Christ, not by a calculation of obstacles. And as we read in Hebrews chapter 3 verse 12, "Take care, brothers, lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living God." Let us rely on God, because if we have an unbelieving heart, if we have fear, we will ultimately be removed from our ultimate purpose, which is to serve the Lord our God, because we need to rely on faith. We also see this in Hebrews chapter 4 verses 1 to 3, on entering God's rest by faith, because Jesus was actually a typology of Christ. He is a foreshadowing of Christ, radically trusting God, radically trusting in his plans despite what we see. What we see is merely an illusion of what is to come. Let's go through some practical applications now of how we can apply this chapter in our daily life. So first and foremost, be like Caleb. That is to say, you need to either reflect on yourself or find someone in your group, in your circle, who actually tends to speak God's yes. That is, who tends to radically trust God, right? And ask for some courage, ask for something, because this is actually really important. The moment when you start to realize that your friends, your people, the people in your group or your circle have gifts given by God, you're able to learn from them. You're able to become a sponge to absorb knowledge from them. There are also individuals among you who tend to amplify the fear. And in that sense, you can do the opposite thing, where instead of bleeding into that fear, you can send a quick word of courage, or send a Bible verse or a quick voice note to say, "Look, I'm here for you. Let's go about the next faithful steps in your journey and help each other." Because the moment we're able to sharpen each other, that's the moment we're getting closer and closer to God. And the second thing is, collect your cluster. I want you to make a tangible list of 3 real evidences of God's provision in your own life this month. This is similar to what I said about gratefulness journaling. For me, I do gratefulness journaling in the morning, writing 3 things that I'm grateful for, and I send it to one of my friends, and it helps me with perspective. And sometimes it actually can be very difficult, because it's quite challenging to find things that you're grateful for. For some reason, I don't know why. I often find myself thinking a lot, but they will come. Regardless of how hard it is, the things that you're grateful for will come to you. And when they do, you're building that level of gratefulness in the future, and you're allowing yourself to be in line with God's plan, because you're constantly reminding yourself of what he has done in the past. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. Next episode is going to be Numbers chapter 14. The people are going to decide, and the consequence is exile for a generation. So we're moving on from Numbers chapter 13 to something a little bit more interesting. If Numbers chapter 13 asked, "What will your report be?" Numbers chapter 14 shows the cost when fear wins. So it's actually carrying on this narrative, and you don't want to miss the pastoral heartbreak and the theological fallout. So, thank you for listening. Numbers chapter 13 shows that the same land and the same facts can be told as either promise or problem. Do the 2 small actions, collect your 3-item cluster of grateful things that you're happy that you have in your life, and name a person who is strong and courageous in your life that you can learn from, and a person who's a little bit more fearful, and help them. And remember that you should speak the facts of God aloud so faith can claim what God gives. And smile. You've just taken a practical step to make faith louder than fear. Tell one friend what you'll do, and let that be your first public step of faith this week. Until next time, trust the promise and not your shrinking imagination, and step forward with God through faith and not fear. Also, if you enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to follow the show and rate it. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.